Welcome to the DVI Smart Status webinar on texting and shop management. I'll go ahead and showcase the new feature here that's on the DVI suite. Just a Smart Status page, or we'll go ahead and introduce a little bit more here in a second. Here we'll start off by simply introducing the things that we're going to be going ahead and showing you out today. So again, regarding the Smart Status feature, we're definitely going to be looking at the actual Smart Status board layout so we don't get lost as we go through all the different views and tools throughout. We're going to go through the different features there, texting customers, messaging technicians, and managing those messages, and how we can basically use all of those tools together to manage our shop flow. So ultimately, just ways that we can help your shop use the Smart Status tool effectively. Now, Smart Status, again, we just want to introduce it as the screen we use for managing your repair order flow. And ultimately, the most useful tool is the central communication hub, where we can connect with both customers and technicians. Now, it's a great visual tool. Everything that you'll see here will be visually shown on the screen as well, and where you can manage your current workload and all the status of the different repair orders and tickets. We'll start off by actually looking at our DVI Smart Status layout here. We'll take a look at the different elements that make up all the different visual cues. First one we're going to look at is the actual columns. These columns, they represent the actual Smart Status step or the actual status, hopefully, that they're synced to in your R writer. So that can be configured in the DVI command configuration, where you can actually link these steps to statuses in R writer. So as you change the step, you're changing the status there as well. And again, we want to remind you that works one way. So you want to make sure if you do that, we're changing the statuses and doing them only on DVI here. What are we actually moving back and forth between these columns? It's going to be the actual cards themselves. These guys represent the actual repair order itself. It'll have the repair order number as well as the customer and car information there. Some other important things on there will be the resources assigned. We'll also hit up a few other things on there, but all in its time. And the first one being the texting acknowledgement, the icon. An icon, I'm sure most of you are well aware, if you have this tool, it just acknowledges that we've gotten permission from our customer so that we can go ahead and start that communication with them via text. It has to be done. That permission is only for the duration of that ticket. So even if you have a recurring customer, for every new ticket they have, we got to go ahead and acknowledge that for them. That can be done verbally, and we'll see where that can be then acknowledged on our system here so that we can start that communication. Going from the top left to the bottom right of one of these cards, you might notice some of these checklist icons. They mean a few things. Again, most of these icons are just visual cues. If you have, basically any quick job or operation there that has a checklist attached to it through the DVI command screen, it'll show up there. If it's red, it means it has not been completed fully. If it's green, it means everything at least has been answered for. And then if you have the little blue envelope that's noted there, that means that the information has actually been sent out to the customer as well. That is not done automatically. If you do want those checklists or decide on which of the many checklists perhaps in one ticket that you want to send to the customer, that has to be clicked into, and we'll actually show you how to do that in a little bit through those options in the icon there. And now the last thing that's actually on the cards themselves that we're going to look at are the customer ETA banners. These are directly taken from whether you've selected these options in the Service Writer Request tab or the R Writer Service Request tab. There you can denote whether the customer is waiting with a little radio box there, and that just means that they're waiting in your shop, so that ticket has a bit more higher priority, and you can visually see that here. Or whether, of course, we've given them a promise time, whether we want to keep to or communicate, that we can't because maybe they hope to be there or are hoping to arrive at that time. So we got those there. So again, it's just a tool that can be seen on DVI, but again, comes from the RO Writer Service Request tab there. And then if you want to organize it, because you might have a lot more cards than what I have here on mine, you can then filter by your service writer or ticket type as well. You also have an additional ticket toggle up there if you like. But that's really easy to do. Something I might recommend for this too is that I've noticed that when you do make one of these filters and you maybe leave and come back to those screens, sometimes those filters don't reset. So if you're having, maybe you don't think you have any tickets or you have a lot less than you think, make sure you reset those filters up at the top there as well. Now, the next thing we want to just make sure we don't glance by is those icons. They're, again, text icons that are actually on the columns themselves. And that's just an indicator whether that status or step has an automatic message configured to it. Again, those automatic messages can be changed in the configuration tab for DVI, but by default, you can see which ones will have a message to the technician by the statuses that have a T with a texting icon next to it, or the messages that will go towards the customer with just the blank ones there. So in this case, the approved status will have one to both, and some will have either to none or both, and you can either include to either or, and you can change what those messages will be, again, in the configuration tab for smart status for that step. Speaking about more lastly about messages here, we have the technicians tab at the far right. We want to remember where this one is. We're going to be looking at it a little bit later on too. But of course, as we have issues with tickets or we want to communicate something, we can go to the ticket here. For example, Christy Garcia is there opting into texting. You can see that the tech assigned to it is Andy. You can see Andy right there at the top right. And if you were to click on his speech bubble, you can communicate to him if he was logged into his tablet. So that's a great way to just do a lot of inter-shop communication. And you can even send a mass message to all technicians by hitting the message icon on the technicians tab too. Moving down to texting customers. Now we're starting with the texting icon, just to open the chat window here. You can see that it is acknowledged. It'll turn green at the top left. Where we acknowledge it in the chat icon, you can see that there is the allow texting message there, where you can then acknowledge and exit for that message to turn green for you. Perfect. Now that must be done in order to send text, again, both manually and automatically throughout the smart status steps. This can be done, again, you can just ask them simply verbally, but it must be acknowledged on our system right here or on the tablet as well if you're creating the ticket there. Remember, on the tablet, you can hit that check mark, but even so, it happens all the time. Make sure you hit save before you move on to the next thing, because you could click on it a million times, and without saving it, it won't matter. Another number will stay on file, but the acknowledgement must be done for each ticket. So even if they're recurring customers, like I mentioned, but from there, it's like any other chat box with autocorrect, and one that even lets you attach any saved images for that RO. This includes RO repair order PDF, so you can just print to a PDF and then boom, hit that little icon there, and it should be able to be sent out to your customer via text. And even incoming messages from customers or text, we'll get more into just in a second, but will appear on the message manager window. It's going to be on the top left near the filters on that screen, but it looks a little like that, message manager on the left there. And we also have an example of what one of the texts sent out to the customer will look like on their phone, with, of course, the name of their store as the main subject line. Perfect. Next, move on to actually managing the messages to our technicians as well. Remember that tab on the right-hand side where we saw the technicians tab? That allows us to communicate with them too. Great tool, again, for inter-shop communication, straight to any service writer on the smart status screen. So that's important to note there too. Anybody on that smart status screen is the receiver of messages sent by the technicians and can also send it right back to them, and they come up effectively as a great DVI command sending you a message. Now these are sent as push notifications to the text device that they're logged into. They can respond back for quick in-shop communication. These have to be acknowledged, and it's a great way for getting attention. So you'll see that their messages can be right here, acknowledged from the main screen on the DVI app on the top right. When they get in there, of course, it'll be a message that's acknowledged. So even if their app isn't even open, it still comes up as a notification if you've got notifications turned on for the app. And you'll see there, great way to quickly get your technician's attention, and hopefully they do have their tablet logged in and with them. Now, managing the shop flow. Now, when it comes to managing the shop flow, we want to use, excuse me, all the visual elements that we saw on top of the communication tools we just looked at to kind of manage that flow. So I'm just going to go ahead and swap to my actual smart status screen here. And we're going to go ahead and follow Mrs. A. Smith and her Honda Odyssey. First thing we can do here, she was checked in on the tablet with DVI, but before she leaves the office, we ask if it's okay to send her updates and communication through text, which she appreciates, so we toggle that on. Again, we want to click on that great selection there. We want to go ahead and allow texting, Again, the number, because she's a recurring customer, will be saved, but because this is a new ticket, we got to go ahead and allow texting anyway. And you'll see that that change will be reflected by the color of that chat icon. We also want to update the status accordingly. So we're going to go ahead and drag Mrs. A. Smith over into opt-into texting, since that's what we just did. We also know by looking at the column header that we just sent our customer a welcome message as well. Again, we can change the message and to whom they are sent in the Smart Status configuration page. But just like that, you visually see the status of the repair order. You saw it change color even, and the appropriate communication, if any, if you want to leave any, is sent automatically. On to the next step. The tech has now been assigned and is ready to go. So we change the status of the ticket to start inspection. We're going to go ahead and drag Mrs. A. Smith over there. Now this prompts the tech to start on it right away. And once he's done, he can also change the status so you're aware. We know that his inspection is complete, perhaps. And then we can make the customer aware too, automatically with the message that comes up here. But we also want to send the results of that diagnosis / checklist. So we want to select the checklist icon to get into the options there. That's going to be the completed checklist icon here. Here we can view the details and even edit the entries to our checklist. We have the ability to edit the checklist there and all the results and entries that we've had in for it there. We also have the option of emailing, or in our case, texting the checklist to the customer. So we have those selections up here. I'm going to go ahead and send text. Once that is complete, go back to the Smart Status screen. You can see the blue letter envelope icon signifying the checklist has been shared to our customer. So under A. Smith, it's not just complete, but it's also been shared with our customer. We now know that for sure. Once the estimate is finalized here, it can be sent via text to the customer as well. So not only are we letting her know that the estimate is complete, of course, we want to get that response back. We can actually text the customer by their texting icon here. And we can send a copy of the current repair order as is, as an option for the payment there. So we can go ahead and click it, and that PDF will be available for them to be sent. If they acknowledge it, you can go ahead and move it over to approved. That confirms to us, lets our tech know, and even gets that confirmation back out to the customer that we know that they're ready to go. We can possibly take a spot in any of these spots left over here. If there are any delays that occur or any parts that are needed. But if not, we're just going to go ahead and move it over to finished, and the customer will be notified. If at any point, though, if we needed to communicate with the tech assigned, we can quickly see the resources on that card and select them right on. So we can see here that Bart Smith is here. His smiling face is right next to us right there. And we can quickly get any messages, whether he's working on the car right now, or we need to get him some quick information on that vehicle before he starts something and it's the right side, not the left side, he needs to change for whatever reason, right? We want to go ahead and take a little view around the whole selection here, and I'll kind of open it up now if we have any questions. All right, so the first one is how to actually get those checklists or those entries to be sent from, so in this case, Mrs. A. Smith, who's under finished, how we actually get that PDF from our writer onto this screen available to be sent to the customer. So we're actually going to go open up our writer point of sale, look at that repair order there, and if we needed to add an additional PDF, all we would need to do is print that repair order, save it as a PDF, and just automatically, just for doing that there, it's linked to that repair order, and you can go ahead and simply refresh that screen, and we'll now have an additional offering available to send to our customer. Yeah, so again, the estimates will just be mostly copies of the repair order there, where you can actually send pretty much everything listed out in different options, and you can just, again, simply send that over and they can go ahead and respond to that there. One other question here, switching over to ticket types. I see here the statuses, how statuses work with estimates. So they don't. So you can see here estimates, they still have all the communication tools. You still have to get permission to send the messages. We can still view checklist information and communicate with them that way, but they just won't have the statuses nor the automatic communication between steps until they're converted otherwise. The question was asked, can the technician message back to the person who sent them the message? They absolutely can. So the only person who can send the technician a message on the smart status screen is, again, anyone who is on this smart status screen. We're going to switch back over to repair orders. But if there are multiple people sending messages on that smart status screen or logged into the screen, anybody who sends a message here will act as DVI command, sending it to the technician. And when the technician sends it back, anybody who is logged into DVI command will also receive that message. And it will show up as a red notification for the tech there. Does it show work in progress? That's handled with the priority tab, where we can actually see whether those jobs that we've listed are actually currently being worked on. And you'll see a little marker for that in the priority tab. I think the real trick to it is just getting the steps kind of synced up correctly. So we'll just take a quick look at the configuration side as well, so we can take a look at how all this works. On the configuration, smart status, we'll also look down here that with every step we mentioned, we also have the ability of designating whether it's to the customer, to the technician, and what that message is. But we probably won't want to waste the option on the first step, since we haven't gotten the permission yet to actually send them the message. So for that reason, we most likely will skip on this one here, but everything else you'll see can change. And because it's so visual and we can want to see things at a glance, you can change what those cards look like, not only positionally because they're in a specific column, but they can be a specific color if they're in a specific status as well. You can change how the text is inverted. And again, you have the resources that'll be actually entered in there for more visual cues to see who's assigned. Pretty straightforward. You don't necessarily have to have as many steps as we have on our smart status screen either. You can reduce the amount of steps here. Keep in mind that will reflect on this screen. And again, hopefully each one of your smart status steps is linked to a smart our writer status on our writer side as well. Thanks everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close it up. Have a good day.